Thank you everybody for making it out tonight. Especially want to thank John Szoka and Robert Lebouf and David. Kind of had a far drive. Thank you guys for making the sacrifice to drive out here to be with us. Really appreciate that. We're going to go ahead and start this thing up. This is the North Carolina Republican Liberty Caucus presents Free Market Energy Discussion Panel. We're just going to talk about the energy sector, mainly the future of energy, and also the Free Market Energy Act, Energy Freedom Act. Thank you. That was sponsored by Representative Szoka. So this is going to be recorded for our YouTube channel. We'll be up on that channel for y'all to view, review, and share with your friends. Let's start with the panelists introducing themselves. For those who don't already kind of know who everybody is. And we'll start at the end there with Mr. Lewis.
Good evening. Thank you. I'm Brian Lewis, and I am, in general, a political animal and activist. I'm currently the chairman of the Wake County Libertarian Party. Some nuanced conversation if anyone wants to ask questions later. But in regard to the panel, my background, not only in electronics but also in environmental work. But I also have experience in starting environmental businesses. I'm actually a big supporter of green business solutions to the problems that face us on a regular basis. The goal that I'm after is making room for companies who have innovative solutions to the problems that we believe we might have, that consumers have the option to put their dollars in that direction, and that it's not barred by government, and it's not barred or forced by a mandate, but rather it's what the consumer believes is right, brings it to the marketplace, and may the best technology win. There you go. Right. So, very good. Thank you. So between environmental activism and political activism, at the end of the day, it's allowing people their maximum liberty. And I think when people are free to choose and actually expand on their own ideas, the best ideas grow, the best ideas come forth, and everybody prospers under that model. Anything I can ever do to support that and support innovative technology being allowed to come to the marketplace, that's where you'll find me.
Very good. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Dave Bernard, and just a couple of things. I'm a career Army officer. I got my start in the Chemical Corps. We specialized in nuclear, biological, chemical defense. Spent a lot of time in my early years reading up on nuclear weapons, effects of EMP, electromagnetic pulse, things like that. And these days I'm a force manager and read papers, units conversion going away, coming here.
What's a force manager?
Excuse me, I'm sorry, ma'am. Right now we're not taking questions.
No. Force, F-O-R-C. In my interest in energy, I went to grad school at George Mason a few years ago, got an MBA, and I took a public policy elective that introduced me to policy issues related to energy. And then I turned around and in my entrepreneurship elective, I developed a business plan for distributed energy. And talked to Erik a couple weeks ago, and but I might have some useful ideas to share with the panel, so here I am. I have a lot of sympathies for leftist views on the environment. Bill McKibben is one of my personal heroes. I agree with his how he assesses various problems. I disagree with his solutions. But largely, I think that anything that we can do to increase distributed energy, any kind of local networks, whether you talk in energy or even food production, I think the security of the nation rests on lots of local webs.
I'm Autumn Proudlove. I'm a senior policy analyst at the North Carolina Clean Energy Technology Center. So that's part of NC State University. I focus on state level energy policy and utility regulation with an emphasis on solar.
I'm Chuck Miller. I'm retired from the energy field, which I worked in for many years, and I worked at Progress Energy. I didn't work at Duke Power, but my interest is in alternative energy because I believe that we have no choice. We're going to have to face the fact that eventually we're going to run out of fossil fuel, and we really do have to do some things.
I'm John Szoka, State Representative representing District 45, which is in Cumberland County. In my second term, some of my responsibilities in the legislature is I'm one of the chairman of the Finance Committee, House Finance, which deals mainly with tax policy and revenue coming into the state, as opposed to appropriations, which is how they spend it. I'm also a vice chair on the Commerce Committee. So my thing is, I'm a Republican. I'm about freedom. Freedom for people to choose in the marketplace, freedom for the markets to work, and to get rid of the obstruction of government interfering in the marketplace. And I'll talk a little bit later about the Energy Freedom Act, which I've been pushing and hasn't come up for a vote yet, but I think you'll find that interesting.
Hi all, Bob Lebouf. To me, the significant issues here are clean water, clean air. And Chuck mentioned we're going to run out of fossil fuels. Well, I have an idea. I have a grandson. Presumably he's going to carry on, and there are going to be children down the line. And you know what? Our future people might need some of these resources for anything that we haven't found out yet. They might need the petroleum for medicine. They might need the coal for emergency situations and restorations after catastrophic problems. I think we owe it to them not to burn every last bit of fossil fuels that we have, which is what we seem to be doing, or the people that serve to gain profit from natural resources of the United States. Now they're talking about exporting our natural fossil fuels. This is a very serious problem here. In the meantime, the free market, when it comes to pollution, I think that it's going to require the free market to come up with solutions to cleaning up the mess that we've already established and to prevent, well, that's where the government comes in, actually, to prevent future crimes against the people of, in this case, North Carolina. I live on the Cape Fear River. You can't drink the water. Duke Energy is under investigation for, with impunity, dumping thousands of gallons of coal ash into the Cape Fear River watershed. It's a serious problem here. Apparently, it's a profit-driven company, and it doesn't really seem to care about the welfare of the citizens, and that's where some agency has to come in and say, we're going to look out for the people. And the EPA seems to be letting us down in grand fashion. I recently moved from Colorado, and if you read on the news, the Animas River, the EPA allowed gold mine waste to go into the Animas River. And the Navajo Nation is depending on the Animas River for their water, for irrigation, for drinking, and they brought in water to them because the water they contaminated, so they brought water to them, and it was oil contaminated, it was foul, it was non-potable, and it was probably detrimental to the irrigation. So we have a lot of problems. I grew up on a river that was, my earliest memories fishing with my dad, it smelled like sewage. It smelled like sewage. And then where I grew up in Massachusetts, they were straining at the gnat and swallowing the camel. They let they would attack small businesses that had pipes, old pipes going into the river. At the same time, 6 million gallons a day raw sewage going into the Merrimack River from Manchester, New Hampshire. So, you know, instead of going after that, they said, well, we'll get this guy over here. He's a little criminal. Meanwhile, big criminals are getting away with murder. And as you can see, I'm very passionate about this. To me, protecting the water, it's against the law to pollute the water of the United States. And it needs to stop. The government has to take a role in that. Free market, I think, is going to come in to clean up the mess and to find solutions for these problems. For example, coal ash perhaps is...
We have to find solutions for it.
What?
We have to find solutions for it.
Yes, okay. And as you say, may the best technology win. And let's go for it.
So I'm Erik, Vice Chairman of the RLC-NC, and hosting this. And you know, like our panelists have already said, we have some major problems, and so we're here to discuss solutions. And first step is understanding the market. And so my first question is going to be to Autumn to start off with, but it's to answer that question, you got to understand a little bit about the market. But first, I'd like to give Frank Roach. We have a guest here tonight who's running for Congress, and if I could give you a few minutes to address the group here.
Thank you very much. I didn't expect that, but thank you. I know most of the faces in the room. And he just wanted to give me a few minutes to let you know about my campaign for Congress. I hope you don't mind me sitting right here at the chair. It's very informal. No need to get up. My name is Frank Roach. I'm running against Renee Elmers for U.S. Congress for the second time. I ran against Renee last year in the 2nd District race and missed by just 3,100 votes, and we would have been celebrated victory. On that basis, we found some confidence and good job, and some positive things came out of that race. Since that time, Representative Elmers has continued to exercise poor judgment in her voting record and the rhetoric she used on the campaign trail. And there was a group of motivated people behind me to bring me to this race again, and so we're going to give another good try here for 2016. It's become a crowded field, as many of you may know. There's multiple candidates in the race now because everyone recognizes how vulnerable Representative Elmers is again, largely because of their vote to block abortion legislation in January, their support of the Department of Homeland Security memorandum of amnesty, which was just blocked by the 5th Circuit today. The chief's got her hands all over that. And of course, their ongoing support of deficit spending and massive amounts of debt. So we have a bunch of people in the race. What I'm asking folks on the campaign trail is for you to please do your homework. You have some real interesting choices here in the 2nd District. Like every Republican, we all check the boxes, right? It's easy on the campaign trail to check all the boxes: pro-life, limited government, national defense. You know the litany of things you hear on the campaign trail. And so it's hard to differentiate between us based on that alone. And so we need you to do your work, to do your homework, and find out who has the background that's related to the challenges that confront us in Washington, D.C. I believe those challenges, of course, relate first and foremost to this little document right here, and how far outside the bounds we are of the Constitution. And of course, we have seen the ongoing movement away from the constraints the Constitution imposed upon us, even today, even this month. We see it right. What the president is doing in his lawless actions may not surprise many of us, but I think what surprises us is the lack of willingness for the legislative branch to exercise their constitutional powers as a third branch of government to constrain a lawless president who's operating outside the Constitution like we've never seen. He's now once again put out a threat to us this week that I still want to get something done on guns. And you know as well as I do what that means. That means an executive action against the Second Amendment. And so what I'm asking people to do is find out who is the properly qualified candidate. You can do that by doing your homework, by visiting our websites, by visiting my website, by following us on social media, keeping up with the campaign. I think you'll find an obvious difference. We know Representative Elmers has already failed us, lied to us, misrepresented us. Now you have to choose between those who are willing to step onto the field to take that job. And I think you'll find I'm the best qualified. We have economic and financial challenges in D.C. bring an economist and a financial market expert to town to fix those problems. It really makes sense to me, and I'm hoping it makes sense to you as well. Now, lastly, obviously my time is up.
You got it. You want another thing?
But lastly, anyway, we're looking for volunteers, and we're looking for support around the district, both to spread the word of the campaign and to participate in helping us get out the vote, man the polls. If anyone's ever been involved in politics, there's one thing you realize very quickly: it is not complicated stuff. It requires hard work, grassroots efforts, and a belief that you can win. So voteforcongress.com is a place you can visit the website, and anything you do to support us would be greatly appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So yeah, we're always gonna, I have no problem opening the floor in the beginning of events for people who are on the campaign trail to get a few minutes to speak. I know it's difficult just getting your message out there. So we're very, but Frank's a Republican, which gives him a couple bonus points.
And if I could get started, if I could take over this meeting and talk about the chaos the Fed's creating, I'd have you all on my side.
Right. Yeah, that's another event. So
All right, one question. Where do you stand on gun control?
let's keep it
Are you gonna remove the 34 and the 86 bill?
Yes.
Good, all right.
Let's bring it back in, y'all.
Here we are.
So the first question I'm going to ask is, what exactly is third-party energy sales, and why are they currently illegal in North Carolina? Have any other states legalized third-party energy sales? So in North Carolina right now, third-party energy sales are illegal. You have to do business. You have to go through the middleman of Duke Energy. They have a state-sanctioned monopoly. In other words, no one else is allowed to be an energy provider, as I understand it. And third-party energy sales are outlawed completely. They will only buy back 10% of energy generated from any independent system, if at all. And so with that, tell us a little bit about third-party energy sales and.
Can I start?
No, I'm sorry. This is for all.
Try to resume in there.
So, as Erik said, a third-party energy sales where someone other than the utility sells power to a retail customer. So right now, you only have the choice of buying power from the utilities. And so this opens up the market a bit and allows some new financing options. As far as its legality, it's the definition of a public utility in the state of North Carolina that makes it illegal. That anybody trying to sell power to a retail customer is going to be defined as a public utility.
They can't do that.
They can't sell
I
power.
was an individual person, and I was feeding into the energy that they can't harness.
Well, it's currently illegal. Please hold your comments and questions till I for a few minutes.
Yep. So if you try to sell power to a retail customer, they're going to classify you as a public utility.
But I wouldn't do that.
Excuse me. Please hold your questions and comments.
You might try to buy power from somebody else though, who is not the utility. And you probably won't get into trouble, but the person selling you or the company selling you that power is going to get into some big trouble, as we're seeing with the test case with NC Warren selling power to a church in Greensboro, and Duke Energy wants to fine NC Warren $1,000 a day for selling power to a church through EPA, and they've asked the Utility Commission for a declaratory ruling on this to see is it legal or is it not. So they're still waiting on that. So you'll hear about from Szoka's bill that will hopefully change that and clarify that that third party selling power is not a public utility and therefore not subject to regulation by the Utilities Commission. In North Carolina, we have regulated monopoly, so that third party is not able to. And as far as other states, we've seen it in a number of other states where they've gone through and they've clarified their language, their definition of a public utility, or they have a wholesale power market, and so third-party sales are legal there. On the other hand, there are also other states where it's illegal, and then there are a number of states where it's kind of uncertain, and they're going through this process of figuring it out, working it out, or the market is just not developed enough that the issue has not come up there.
Okay, thank you. Do the panelists have anything else to add as far as the explanation of third-party energy sales? Okay. Sure.
This is one of the most un-American things I have ever heard of, preventing people from generating their own electricity on their own property. I haven't heard anything close to that. It's extremely un-American.
Yeah, I would bet most North Carolinians have no idea about this energy regime framework, if you will. So that's why we're doing this here tonight. So.
Erik, if I could just clarify, you can right now generate your own power on your own property if you want to. That isn't the core issue. The core issue is if you want to put solar panels on your rooftop, you have to buy them outright, and you have to deal directly with the utility in terms of buying any access you have. So the issue with third party is that if you have your house and you want to put solar panels on the roof, that you could go to XYZ company who would provide the solar panels, they would maintain them, everything else, so you would be paying XYZ company who has the agreement with either Duke or one of the co-ops or whoever the major utility for that area that you're in is. That is currently what's illegal. So technically you can do it, but part of the issue is with third-party sales is who's got the $20,000 minimum to put panels on your rooftop to pay cash for it? I mean, I'm sure some people do, but I don't. I don't know if anybody here does.
Yeah, and then while the free market, you should be able to then turn around and sell that energy to your neighbor or to your local cooperative grid.
Yeah,
Ryan?
you should.
Excuse me, ma'am.
The key thing that I would point out on there is whatever products the market chooses to develop because of demand is the direction that's most important. So if a homeowner says, I am not secure in understanding everything about the power cells themselves, the actual panels, I would rather have another company come in, I'll give them space on my roof, and I don't own those panels, provides a certain level to the consumer who does not have to then become an expert in solar panels in order to engage in the market. So the current system requires the consumer to have to educate themselves and become a solar panel expert before they commit to making a full purchase, versus the types of products that can be innovated when a company comes in and says, we will produce, and whatever the nature of that contracting agreement is between private parties. And I think that's what I think the biggest impediment in the importance of having third-party sales is that the end consumer of an electron does not have to be an expert in a nuclear power plant, doesn't have to be an expert in a coal power plant, doesn't have to be an expert in solar panel technology and power inversion either. They consume what they believe is right, what meets their economic needs, and what meets their moral needs. And the decision is free for them. If you want to buy your own panels, great, buy your own panels, and you can currently. The issue is for the consumer who isn't the solar panel expert to be allowed to enter the market and engage in an agreement between private parties as they see fit.
And what kind of adds insult to injury is in the North Carolina system, you're forced through a ratepayer-backed guaranteed rate of return to, through your monthly power bill, invest in the future of energy as they see fit. And of course, they're going to want to keep doing the same thing. Why would you want to, promote something that someone else has got a patent on or whatever, what have you? So, there's right there, just compounding not only do you not have a free market, but you're forced to then pay for something that you're not getting, like future power plant repairs that they may not make for 10 years. And so we really need to tackle that issue of there being a lack of a free market. But also, when you're talking about tax credits for renewables on people's homes, people say, well, it's anti-free market to have a tax credit for an investment you made on your home to be energy efficient. But the other, the whole story is, if you don't make that investment on your home, then through your power bill, you're being forced to fund the future of energy as the cartel or the monopoly sees fit. And so
I'll just add quickly, recently acquired Piedmont Natural Gas. They're supposed to be keeping their operations separate for now, but we'll see what happens down the road.
Interesting. So if you were Duke Energy and you acquired this natural gas plant, why would you in any way want to promote anything to do with solar? You just made this big, huge investment. So, preferential purpose. Right. And so, that's why it's not at all anti-free market to have something like the reps where they have to diversify because they already have a state monopoly. If we had a true free market and people could just, buy whatever energy they wanted to get, then I wouldn't say Duke should be forced to diversify. But if they're going to get a state-sanctioned monopoly, then we as the people of North Carolina do have a say in what kind of energy they're producing. So with that said, do you have a question? Oh, okay. So with that, John, would you tell us about the Energy Freedom Act and what exactly it does?
Sure. It's House Bill 245. Let me back up a minute, not to that bill, but to before that, in my first term up here. I failed to mention the introduction. I'm a retired lieutenant colonel in the Army. Was an infantry guy. At the federal level, there was a mandate established back in 2005, I believe, that said, because of energy security on military bases in the United States, there's a desire to get some amount of energy security. I mean, if you've ever been to Fort Bragg, which is in my district, you'll know that as a civilian, you can't get out there unless you have a real good reason. You have to go have your car inspected and everything else. But we also know through the popular press that Chinese and some former East European Soviet bloc countries have very aggressively pursued attacking the infrastructure of the United States. We've seen with the Sony Studios thing that came from North Korea, supposedly. There have been thousands of attacks or probes of our energy systems by the Chinese. And that's all in the mainstream media. So we need energy security, not just in fossil fuels, but also when you look at a military base, to make sure that in the event of an attack, that they can generate some of their own energy to keep going. What they have now are lots of generators. Generators are great, noisy, loud, use a lot of diesel. They come in all kinds of sizes, as small as this table, as big as this building. The military has a lot of them, but still, people back in the early 2000s said we need some type of energy security. So that was really my initial interest. Last session I had a co-sponsored a bill. Was a primary sponsor with some other folks on that. Was the Military Good Neighbor Act, which would only look at establishing third-party sales for military installations. That did not go anywhere. I was told by representatives from Duke that they actually had 100 people in a room working on third-party sales. And being a freshman at the time, I took them at their word and kind of backed off. And in all honesty, had it come to a vote, it wouldn't have passed. So 2 years of that, fast forward to my second term, I asked to see this room of 100 people working on it, never got around to seeing it. Essentially was going to file a bill that essentially did the same thing, talked to them, found out that they, in fact, had told the truth. They did have 100 people in the room working on third-party sales. However, it wasn't on the goals that I wanted. It was on the goals that they wanted, which was getting into third-party sales in a big way at a very large level. And they bought 60% of a California company for, I believe it was $265 million, who specialized in third-party sales. And right now they're building one of the largest solar fields. I actually have built it in the United States, right up in northeastern North Carolina. And they're sending that energy through the grid up to American University and George Washington University, which were supposedly, they signed this agreement, supposedly each one of those universities is saving $1 million a year on their energy costs. So after talking to a number of folks, I think, well, we've got 16 major universities here in North Carolina. If they can save $1 million a year, a little bit north of us, why can't we save $16 million right here? There were some counter reasons to that, how the energy, cost of energy is higher up there, and it is a tad higher, so it was more competitive. But still, when you look at it, that's not the only reason. Then I looked at the states to the south of us. I looked at Florida. where it has been a Republican issue for a number of years to free up the energy markets and to promote renewables. Georgia has passed a third-party sales law, and right before I filed my bill, South Carolina did, in conjunction with, I forget the name of the major power company down there, but Duke certainly has, and Duke Progress has part of the South Carolina market. So then I looked online at Duke Energy websites for Duke Energy and Duke Energy Progress to see what are the rates that you pay for residential power, for commercial power, and for industrial power if you're below that line in South Carolina, and if you're above the line in North Carolina. Because I wanted to test this theory that it's really a price differential, which makes it better in some states and not in others. And for anybody listening to this, please go out and do the same research. It's real easy. Google answers all. And it's on Duke's websites. There is no difference. In some cases, it's a tad higher. I mean, fractions of a cent in North Carolina on one of these categories, depending where you are. In some categories, it's fractions of a cent higher down in South Carolina. So the argument that it's all based on cost that was confronted with me, that just doesn't hold water. So what are some of the other arguments? Well, I went from the military, and then I got some other folks interested, a couple small companies you might have heard of, Walmart, Lowe's. Walmart, the largest private employer in the state of North Carolina, with over 49,000 employees, wants third-party sales. Why? Well, as the Walmart reps told me, if they wanted to be in the solar business, they would. I mean, let's face it, they're Walmart. I mean, look to any Walmart where they are. They have retail, they sell gasoline, they do a lot of things. They choose not to get into this market. They'd rather lease it from third parties, put it on their rooftops. Like the gentleman down here was saying, it's not all about cost sometimes. Sometimes people feel, for whatever personal reasons, that they're benefiting the environment, they like solar, they like other renewables. They're doing it for other reasons, so it's not all about dollars and cents. Walmart asked me, said, John, I thought you were a conservative Republican. Why isn't your bill that you're going to file have it for companies? It's like, well, that's pretty hard to argue against, because the first part of that, you're right, I'm a conservative Republican. The second part is, it's a free market issue, so I thought about that. So all of a sudden, my bill expanded from military bases to industrial, to the Walmarts. And then following that logic is, if it's good for a company to do that, why isn't it good for you and I to be able to decide if we want to, again, for whatever reason? Now, I am a free market guy. I mean, there are people out there who would put solar on their house through a third-party agreement who would pay more than market rates for that ability to do that. I know that because I've had hundreds of people tell me that. You might drive a Honda, you might drive a Cadillac. That's a choice. Energy, in my opinion, should be a choice. So the bill basically authorizes third-party sales, not only from the military, but for industry, for corporations, for everybody across the state. Now, we don't have anybody from Duke here, so I will tell you what some of the objections are, because I want to be completely fair, and you really need to know what the objections are to be able to evaluate this bill and the policy. Some of the objections are, as somebody here mentioned earlier, I believe it was you, sir, when the sun doesn't shine, consumers want, when they flip the switch, they want power to come on. We all know that. I do, you do, everybody does. So when the sun isn't shining, the main utilities have to have the spinning reserves, if you will, the backup to be able to fill the grid with electricity. That's a valid argument. Okay? Another one is, it is an economic one, is should Duke be forced to pay a higher than market rate for something that they can produce at a lower rate? That's a good question. Should they? I don't know. Free market can say no. But that's one of those things that's really tangled up in legislation and in the rules and the laws that we live under. And there's two other arguments, really, and this one comes from people in the agricultural sector. Some farmers are saying that we're taking prime agricultural land out of production and it's not its highest use. But again, if we believe as conservatives that private property, that if you own 100 acres, that's your 100 acres. I'm not going to tell you what you can do with it. except, don't like throw around nuclear waste or something, because that endangers other people.
Right.
But you can do on your 100 acres what you want to do. I talked to a gentleman and his wife who, right now they have leased 530 acres in Cumberland County in my district, one of the largest solar farms east of the Rocky Mountains. And I put that question to that farmer. He got rather irate, and I won't repeat them word for word, but basically it kind of went like this. When I started farming 50 years ago, that was a swamp. I turned it into farmland. That's my land. It's my property. I'll do whatever I want to with it. I'm trying to set up something that'll provide for my wife and my children and my grandchildren. That's the best use of that land, in my opinion. I'm not going to argue with them. So that argument about you taking prime land, that really butts head first into property rights. And, you own it, you can do what you want to. What was the last argument? I lost my train of thought on that one. I got it back. The last argument, and this is kind of a false one here, I believe, is that somehow that solar panels in particular are hazardous waste and should be treated like that. Well, they're 99% silicon, which is glass, sand, and actually for the same reason that when we recycle computer monitors and electronic equipment is the same reason that when one of these solar panels, or millions of them, outlive their usefulness, they get recycled to get the rare earth materials in there to make them work and the other metal. So they're not going to fill up land dumps. They're going to be recycled just like we recycle computers and TVs and things like that. So that argument really doesn't hold a lot of water with me, but surprisingly, some folks believe that. This, I believe, is a conservative issue. I believe it's a very straightforward bill that authorizes something that I think that we as conservatives should support. There are issues to be dealt with. The issues of the spinning reserves, should the utilities get paid for having that? My opinion on that, the way energy, and you might have to help me out on this here, is that with our Utilities Commission, a lot of their function is to figure out those kind of things. I'm not an electrical engineer. I actually do have 2 engineering degrees, but not one in electrical engineering. But they have a staff there. They have the public staff who looks out for the welfare of the citizens of the state of North Carolina. They have experts. They can figure it out. It's math. It's math. Oh, I remember what the other last one was, and that is, I think this is a rather important point that tends to get overlooked quite often, and that is, it came up during the debate we had on extending the renewable energy tax credits. Basically, taxpayers were subsidizing a form of energy. I will tell you with 100% certainty that everybody here who pays an electric bill, everybody in the state of North Carolina, everybody in this country is subsidizing every type of energy. Every single type of energy is subsidized. You just can't, it's not as visible as the renewable energy tax credits at the federal and the state level are. Nuclear power, I finally found out the name of it. It's called the Price-Anderson Nuclear Industries Indemnity Act. Basically, it limits the liability for companies and their nuclear plants to a certain amount, which isn't a whole lot. I mean, they have to, whoever owns a nuclear plant, you might have one or more reactors on a site, only has to insure it up to $375 million in damages. To me, I mean, I wish I had $375 million, so I'm not trying to make it sound trivial, but in the overall scheme of large companies, that's not a lot. And basically, the federal government is subsidizing the insurance for nuclear power plants. In the event of a major calamity, each nuclear power plant has to chip in like 121 million times each reactor. And that takes you up to $12 billion overall. Anything over a $12 billion disaster in the nuclear industry, guess who picks up the bill? Us, because we are the federal government. You're absolutely right. So you got subsidies for the nuclear power industry. Most people don't know that exists. And if they know it exists, they only know it in general terms. Subsidies for oil and coal. I mean, they've been written into the tax code for years and years and years. And it's there. And let's not forget, one of the last subsidies that's really a little indistinct and not too measurable, but that is the cost of maintaining the fleet in the Persian Gulf to keep the shipping lanes open for oil to come here. And also, I forget which fleet is it, the sixth fleet, I think, down the Straits of Malacca to keep the energy flowing that way to the West Coast. There is a cost to that. And people can argue any which way they want to that we need to be the world's policeman, we don't need to be the world's policeman, but we're in those places for the national good, my opinion, to keep that oil flowing to us. So the more we can produce here, the better. That's what my bill does. I'll be quiet. I literally told Erik I could talk about this for hours. And there's a question in the back.
I got a quick question.
Yes, sir.
Going back to land use with solar, anybody feel free to answer this. I spent several years in another state called Mississippi. A lot of farming, a lot of agriculture, wide open. However, in my travels, I have come across there are 2 fossil fuel plants, I believe they were natural gas, basically have been abandoned. They've been shut down, nothing. The land all around that, okay, the transmission lines, everything is still there, but the plants have been completely dismantled and shut down. What would it take to convert something such as that to a completely solar producing plant?
I don't know.
If I may, I actually would contend that is not a collective decision. That's a market decision for a company and somebody to step up and say, I'm willing to invest X dollars because I can do it. And I have these assets in place and acquire the assets. And be permitted to acquire the assets. And in a lot of the conversation that we're having here discusses where the limitations are for private entities to go in, do any number of options, whether it be retrofit them into production as natural gas facilities or build a solar facility in the same place utilizing the transmission line connections that are there. The question is allowing businesses, I think where the obstacle is allowing businesses to make the decisions and getting the regulatory hurdles out of the way that kind of an asset would sit there idle as opposed to flowing to its best use as determined by somebody willing to invest their own capital.
So let me chip into that too, because I was at this military conference on renewable energy a couple weeks ago. I met a gentleman who owns a company not too far from Fayetteville, scheduled to go visit it in 2 weeks, that they've come up with a new technology for hog waste to take basically all the water out of it, compress the hog waste, and then burn it in a converted facility like you're talking about. And in fact, they bought 2 old power generation plants in our state, pennies on the dollar, because they've been shut down. It was there, and this is a private company doing this, and they're converting them with this new process to burn hog waste, and they're burning some other things as well, some other bio stuff. And guess what? They're making a profit. Well, they got, and they will tell you, they got those production facilities, that's actually doing the burning for pennies on the dollar. But again, free market works. People with new ideas, entrepreneurs, figure things out. So some of those things, it's just, like you said, they're just waiting for the right company or the right person to come along and say, I can make money doing this way. So that's, and I think it's real important, and I'll shut up here, but it's real important to remember that renewables isn't just solar. It's things like hog waste to energy, it's wind, it's geothermal, it's biomass. There's a lot of different things going on.
I was glad to hear the representative say that about the hog waste. The Cape Fear watershed contains turkey farms and hog farms, the greatest number in the state of North Carolina. And there you go. That's right there what you were just saying, converting that methane for the waste and burning that. That's an example. Sometimes I think we have to go, we seem to go towards solar right away. You mentioned geothermal. I was married to a wonderful woman for 25 years, and after she sent me down the road, she took our little home up in Massachusetts and had some contractor come in, dig some trenches, put in some piping and a heat pump. And up there in the Northeast, she has minimal bills for air conditioning and heat. And down here, I mean, with the climate the way it is, I mean, the private individual could minimize their electric bill, next to nothing. And then as far as what they could generate and save with the, like the Tesla batteries we're talking about, it's entirely possible for the individuals to do what they need to do to be free.
Yeah, it's almost like we kind of got to get back to basics,
Yeah.
So we've got just a couple minutes. If we could, starting off maybe with David, talk about the benefit of local decentralized energy versus centralized energy.
Sure. One of the things I came across when I was doing the research for the public policy class and for the business plan I ran was 1/3 of all the energy that we produce is lost in the transmission of that energy to the ultimate consumer. And also it's lost to different forms of waste. So you look at the nuclear power station and you look at all that, the cloud of steam that's above it on a clear day, that is waste. And it's a missed opportunity to take one of the outputs of power generation and put it to work. If you have distributed energy with lots of little stations, I don't care what they're burning. They could be methane digesters, could be petroleum, coal, natural gas, what have you. But if you have them located in any pockets of population, you really reduce the transmission distances, and you make it possible that you use heat, which is dispersed as a byproduct. The people that think humans are responsible for climate change, it's heat that escapes and contributes to a form of pollution. Sure, I'll give you that argument for the sake of this discussion. But you can turn around and just like we used to have steam boilers that would heat buildings that were across the road from the power station, you can have improve your energy efficiency by more than 1/3 by using technology that exists right now and just having more smaller units of generation.
Autumn, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. I think that you have a lot of security benefits with distributed systems, especially if you combine them with things like microgrids and with storage. You have that on site, you have less risk where you have a centralized system and all these lines, all these points where it's vulnerable. Solar in particular, there you have that resource everywhere. It's not like fossil fuels, which have to be gotten from somewhere and then transported. It's not like wind that is really only strong in certain places, or geothermal that works better in certain locations. Solar is pretty universal unless you have shading. So you're able to take advantage of that power in times where you may not be able to get that fossil fuel that you need transported. So it's pretty universal. It allows everyone that opportunity to generate their own power and have that increased energy security.
Speaking of your solar and cloudy, I was reading somewhere that some new progress on panels where they can actually still collect just by energy, even though it's cloudy, just whatever energy still comes through.
Microinverters, yeah, they allow, if you have just part of the panel shaded, only that part is not going to produce energy, but the whole rest of it can still produce energy. The older inverters, which are still used because they're cheaper, if one part of the system is shaded, then the whole thing will not produce any energy.
That's kind of what I was talking about, but basically what it was saying was, what I was reading real quickly, I didn't read the whole paragraph, but basically, whatever radiant particles that are coming through the clouds, like yesterday when we had all the rain, there wasn't any sun coming through. But it was still collecting solar particles that were coming through the clouds and producing electricity. It was kind of collecting scattered ones and combining them, some kind of new type of panel.
I'm not particularly familiar with that type of panel, but I know there have been a lot of increases in efficiency of these panels.
On that, last year, year and a half ago now, I actually went to NC State, which is actually Autumn's department, and took their renewable energy management program, CREM for short. And in that, actually Autumn touches on it perfectly, it's the micro inverters. They're actually building the inverters into the panels themselves. But the other advantage is being able to use a lower return voltage to produce a functional voltage. There have been adaptations in several renewable energy, including wind and in solar, where in those marginal productive times, they're able to use what's there to make some level of productivity out of it. Wind turbines used to at one time have to rotate at 60 cycles in order to maintain a 60 cycle power, and anything faster than that had to be geared down to keep them, the power cycle right. Now they actually go through a reverse inversion and then re-inversion in order to use them at any speed and just produce more current. And solar panels are doing the same thing, where they pull it off as a variable DC and then convert it into a uniform AC through computer-controlled inverters. So, neat technology, and I can geek out a little bit about it. But.
Thank you, Brian. And I want to say a big thank you to the whole panel. Let's give them a round of applause. It's about 8:30, so I think the debate's about to start. I think it starts at 8:30, so.
9 o'clock start.
Okay, it starts at 9, so if you guys have any more questions, if you guys want to ask any more questions.
Yeah, what channel's the debate on?
We'll turn that on.
As well.
And they're talking about issues this time.
We'll see.
I just think something help me sleep.
Can I make a couple quick announcements just to get you guys up to speed? Next month, December 8th, we're doing a Wake County chapter business meeting here again, 6 p.m. And then 7 p.m. we have a parliamentary procedure class and delegate training session for people who want to be delegates in the presidential convention cycle next year. And then January 26th, we have NCCIT coming. It's North Carolina Commission on Inquiry of Torture. They're going to be talking about CIA's kidnapping program and some of the pluses and minuses, things we could maybe do better. And then February, we have a shooting competition fundraiser at our chairman's property in Timberlake, North Carolina, around the closest weekend to the Second Amendment Day, which is February 23rd. So,
All right, how much time have we got?
we'll get you the details on that. So stay tuned. Thank you.